Welcome to another edition of the Croydon Dads podcast. My name is Dom and I'm joined by
Tristan
and Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about our lifestyles and adapting to life with a baby. So I just think, first of all, what can we do in terms of sharing some ideas about looking after ourselves? How easy did you find looking after yourself and prioritising yourself when you became a dad?
I think when I first became a dad, looking after myself was the last thing, to be honest with you. In terms of prioritising what we could do, I would say again, is speaking to like your friends. Often you have friends that are going through the same thing. I mentioned it before, and you may be saying to each other like, how's your child? But you're not actually asking each other like, how are you? So I think we need to like make that a general topic of conversation, being a dad, asking your friends like, okay, what's going on with your daughter? Like, and asking them, okay, for instance, potty training. What's going on with potty training? Is your child like wetting themselves all the time? Your child's 2. And sometimes we have like children that are the same age and we're friends and we're not asking each other no crucial questions.
Yeah, why do you think that might be?
Again, I just think that is like, it depends your upbringing, but I just think with most of us, our upbringing is like, if you've got especially being a dad again, it's just like your dad didn't really share much questions with you. So even if you've got a dad like my situation, I've grown up with my dad in my life and my parents are together, but still when I think my dad wasn't sharing nothing with me. So even being a dad now and looking back, I don't even know what my dad was going through mentally with like me, myself. I know like sometimes that actually was a problem. So I'm like, now I'm looking back, like I don't know how you felt. So I think we should, just have more conversation.
So do you think there's something in that about kind of making different choices, breaking the chain, if you like, that might be passed down, whether that's a cultural thing or just a family thing, but saying we need to open up a little bit more and ask maybe questions that allow a bit more of a conversation rather than us putting everything through our children and our children's development as opposed to our experiences of that, yeah?
I think also like when you become a dad, I would say for me anyway, personally, it's like becoming a manager. So it's like I think someone mentioned it before, third wheeling, but sometimes it's a bit like, okay, maybe you go to like a family function and again, it's just about your child and you just become like a ghost in the background that's over your child and so.
Is there something you want to bring in on that as well?
Yeah, so I would say I went through 2 separate phases. So I like working out, going to the gym. When I had my daughter, we had her in lockdown. So what I did was I just ordered some equipment and I said for 100 days straight, I'm just going to do some form of exercise. So I was skipping, doing weights, etc. And I think that was really, it was really healthy for me. But when we had our son for 2 months, I said, I'm just going to be dedicated to being at home with my wife and child. I'm not going to do anything because now you're going from 1 child to 2 children. So even that 2-hour space I didn't have because now we've got 2 children and I didn't want my wife to have the burden of managing 2 children with me doing something quite leisurely, even though it has a massive impact, not just on my physical health, but my mental health. So I didn't do it and it wrecked me completely. It completely wrecked me. And I realized at that point how important it was. So outside of coming out of that, 2 months and, being back at work and, somewhat creating a routine, I managed to be able to do that. But that meant I had to be part of the 5 a.m. club. Now I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, making sure that by the time my 2 kids are up, I'm back home and I'm there to support before heading to work. So yeah, a lot of a culture shock and culture changes, and that was probably one of the most positive things because I do it even now. So I'm always up at 5 a.m. I get to do my things where praying, reading before the chaos starts. When I hear my son in the morning, I get to do these things and it's been very, very positive. And I think it's really important to make sure, even though you are, you know, your life has changed now because you have children. You do look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, the reality is you actually can't look after your children. You can't be your best self if you're not looking after yourself. So you need to find a way. You know, it's 24 hours in a day, and it's difficult to get things done in those 24 hours, but you've got to find a way to look after yourself. You've got to find a way, you know, if you're with the mother of your children, to help support and look after your partner as well as looking after your children. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but you have to be your best self in every aspect. And sometimes, you know, you can't, you know what I mean? Sometimes there's just not enough capacity for that day or for that time frame. But I think setting cultures and boundaries, and making sure that they're put in place and you're actually following them through consistently, contributes to that adaptation. So with my first child, it was very easy because it was lockdown. There was no paternity. I was there for a year looking after my child with my wife. The second time around, completely different experience. And I had to learn, it's important to set cultures and put things in place, you know, to help contribute to my mental health, you know, being as best as it can.
Yeah, that's some interesting thoughts there. So what you're saying is that it wasn't until you felt your other half was outnumbered that you then felt that, right, now that's going to decapitate you to some degree. You're just going to be, obviously not literally, that'll be and you'd be doing well to be talking to us right now if that was the case. But there's something about that takes away a bit of your autonomy, because our thoughts are all about the classic man provider. I've got to be there for them, and I'm going to put them first. And of course, if you put your kids first and your partner first all the time, and you're not putting yourself first, then it's a very slippery slope. Kind of links into what we were talking about in a way about feeling flat, feeling down, and maybe that leading to some kind of depression. And we know, right, that exercise, the endorphins, the kind of feeling really positive is really important, or whatever it is that you might have curtailed. I certainly think that happened to me. I think I stopped doing quite a few things that I would normally have felt free to do. Again, because of the timings, our days were kind of starting at 5:30 as well. So it was just like, there was just like no off switch. It was bing, 5:30, one kid's up, the other one's up, they're running around the house. It's tricky. Have you got anything to say about that, Tris?
Again, I don't know if we're talking about just a change in like how my life was and things I had to change. Like I like playing football, so that's one thing that went out of the window straight away. Like it went out of the window straight away. All the stuff like goals, going to play football on the weekend, or joining something that is consistent, it was hard for me to keep up, to be honest with you. Especially in my situation, I'm co-parenting and my daughter lives with me also, so I literally, like, that was my life gone. Yeah, usually I would find that it's like a mother is also having to play a father role, but I was like having to do a mothering role as well, which was like, now I can actually understand. It's like you literally have to give up everything. So that was a struggle. But I also realized, again, it goes to having conversation and talking. I've got a very supportive family. So it was just like, where I am a man, I don't want to talk about certain things, and I think I should be able to deal with them. But when I opened up and spoke to people like your mum or anyone, say I need support, or can you help me do this and that, I kind of got back my life, to be honest.
So there's a big part of that is having and it might sound ridiculous to even phrase it like this, but having the courage to ask for help. Yeah. And I wonder if that's another one of these kind of classic men responses, that we can't show that we're being weak. And I know we've talked about that in various ways in other podcasts, but there's this idea of actually it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's a strength to be able to ask for help, and it's a strength to say that we're struggling. It's still a bit difficult for us, isn't it? You might, even if you've been brought up with this idea that it's all right for men to cry, it's all right for boys to cry, for a lot of us, we can kind of get really emotional at the football. Definitely. Let loads of things out of the football, but when it comes to how you feeling, yeah, I'm all right. I'm fine. It's fine. Whenever I hear someone say fine, it's like, ooh, that's a bit of a red flag. So that's about looking after ourselves. And you were saying, both of you, that it's really important that we look after ourselves, because otherwise we don't have anything left for baby or our partner. So what could be a consequence then, as well as feeling a bit flat, if we're feeling really frustrated and tense? How might we respond to our partner or our baby if we aren't looking after ourselves properly? What might that look like?
I've been there. I've been there, and I think, you know, in a previous podcast I was talking about articulation, and I've always been a person that I don't mind being shouted at, I don't mind, but I think it just has to be relative to the type of discussion we're having. And articulation is a very big thing for me. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And for someone that's so heavy on articulation, I know I was not articulating myself properly in those moments. Just kind of acting out of character, raising my voice, which is something that I just don't really do. Kind of like even just things like storming off and say, you know what, I just don't want to be a part of this anymore. Do you know what I mean? So I realized I was doing so many things out of character. And that's why it's important to have routine, structure, and putting things in place, because once things are more rigid on both ends, there's an understanding and you're able to deal with things head on at that time. But yeah, my thing, I was just a lot of shouting, raising my voice, a lot of, even if I'm being honest, like even just looking at my kids and feeling a bit of resentment. Do you know what I mean? Because I understand, the responsibility that I have, and this is something that I've chosen to do, but like, I'm looking at these kids thinking, we've just taken my life away. You are my life in essence, but it's taken away the things that I enjoyed doing that allowed my mental health to be in a great position. On the flip side of that, I would say is what I actually needed to do or started to understand was the importance of, my wife's mental health being important as well. I think sometimes, or I'd say for myself, maybe there's just a stigma around, I was saying earlier, the women being at home and looking after the children, and sometimes that doesn't even seem as a job, but it's the biggest job in the world, in my opinion, and it's a huge responsibility that they're taking to nurture a child for primarily the most part of their early lives, and then what I realized was that I was coming home and spending 2 hours with my kids before, and then going to bed, and that was fantastic. But I'm thinking, hold on, my wife has spent 12 hours 10 hours with these children. And what would happen is, as soon as I'd come home, because it's the first interaction my wife is having with an adult, it's just tsunami. It's all coming out. And I had to find a way to, I don't even want to say suppress. Once again, I had to put myself in a position to understand that, okay, cool, I need to give my wife this time to express. And then maybe tomorrow or maybe at another time I can express, how I'm feeling. And that way, and as a consequence of that, our communication was a lot more peaceful, rather than it being, not peaceful, but it took a very long time for me to get to that point. I would just be like, I want to go to bed. I'm tired of, I've spent 2 hours with these kids. I'm a fantastic dad. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, just to kind of wrap up that point, articulation is important, and just finding the space for you to actually share without judgment is fantastic.
Yeah, you mentioned routines a couple of minutes ago. So I'm just going to ask you guys, what were your routines before you had kids? What did they look like?
Before I had a kid, I had somewhat of a routine. Like, I'm a very work-based person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like being able to dedicate myself to work to like get as far as I could in my job. So like maybe I would stay at work, finish work at 5, and I'm staying extra till 7 so that I can finish all my work and do what I want to do to get myself to the next level. But as soon as I had a child, it started becoming like, I don't know, little things like school run. So I'm leaving at like 2:30 and I'm not getting time to finish what I would usually finish, and that like upset me a lot.
So pre-kids, your routine was determined by one person, you. When kids are born, who determines the routine? Your child? Okay, so it might be your child that determines the routine. What about your partner?
Yes, I would say primarily the child, but I would say primarily the child. But no, because things have changed. With my wife, we were both working. I've had the baby. She's currently not working. So yeah, everything it's like a, I would say like a conveyor belt. It just goes round and round and round and round and round. So yes, both of them are contributing factors.
So there's something about, it might be the first time in our lives, certainly since we become adults, when we're at that choice of how routines run, especially if we're the ones working out of the house and mum's the one in the house. those routines are often established by the mum, and it might be the first time we kind of have to let go of that a bit. And if we've been used to our own independence, it can be quite a difficult thing to do, and either just go, well, I'll just do everything that she says because she knows best, or you might have different ideas. So both of those, again, we're back to communication yet again, aren't we? Just thinking about what's it like for us to transition. I wish I'd known this, that the transition from being an independent person, sure, you can have a partner, but an independent person with your routines running the way that work for you, and suddenly, I know I've got to be thinking about 2 other people now in a way that I didn't before.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a lot in routines and structure. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I hope everyone listening has found that useful. It's been a pleasure chatting to you guys, and that has been the Dad's podcast for Croydon, Lifestyle Adapting to Life with a Baby.